if it's so obvious, I wouldn't say easy, but if it's so obvious to solve this particular solution, what has been the biggest stumbling block? It's been 2021. We're approaching the mid-year of 2021, and yet the infrastructure is still not there. In your view, what's stopping us?
Well, Malaysians have always not been risk takers. Okay, we quite complacent with everything we have, but the situation is that. So my approach is that if you are not going to be a risk taker, there are a group of people in Malaysia who form EV clubs and all that. They basically pushing these boundaries further and further, just because they are early adopters. But for the rest of us, is waiting to see. Come on now, if I want to buy a car, where am I going to charge it? I say charge it at home.
This is a MARii podcast.
This is Mobility World. We are part of the Plug-in with MARii podcast network. My name is Ibrahim Sani. We're going to be talking about electric vehicles in this episode. And of course, this is in conjunction with Earth Day that is celebrated every April 22nd. And while we have heard a lot of news about Earth Day and the fact that we need to think about sustainability, the role of this podcast is always talking about the intersection between industry and of course occupation with that of sustainability, which means that electric vehicles would naturally fall nicely into these intersections. Joining me for today is a very special guest that we have. We have here the Dato Khalilur Rahman and the Ibrahim, the executive chairman and founder of EV Innovations. Welcome to the show, Dato.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, this is a big day for EV Innovations. Very recently, we've heard the MyKar electric vehicle project from the startup company EV Innovations have signed a memorandum of agreement or MOA with MARii, the Malaysia Automotive Robotics and IoT Institute, our host right now, regarding the manufacturing of the car. And this is coming on the back of further agreements that have been signed by SES or System Consultancy Services, signing in with Ingress Corporation, talking about the production of it. So we're going to be talking about the whole notion of the car itself, the industry, the outlook, and perhaps even some of the challenges that lay within. But before we jump into that, we got to talk a little bit more about the mega trends within the EV sector. And as we all know, electric vehicles are fast approaching a tipping point. We're talking about decarbonization agenda, pro-EV policies, technological breakthrough, urbanization, push, infrastructure readiness, e-mobility, and the millennial generation that serve as a catalytic fuel to supercharging the EV revolution. So my first question to you, Dato, is this. Do you think that this is the perfect time to launch an EV business? And what do you think of you guys approaching 2021? There's a pandemic all over us, but at the same time, there's an opportunity that needs to be had. What do you think of this, Dato?
I think it's a perfect time because the whole industry is looking at the new normal and being reset to the current situation. So I believe that we have to look further into what we're going to do for the future in terms of green technology, sustainable energy and things like this. An electric vehicle is probably one of the most important component of this, vehicles are being one of the important pollutants of the air.
Yeah.
And using, fuel that's going to be not an endless resource. So electric vehicle will be the perfect launching environment for this. Because when you are in the old normal, everything is sort of everything is not disturbed. You don't think what is the next step ahead. Now with these challenges, with the economy being completely upheavaled in every word, every sense of the word, it is now ready. We have to think of what is the new economic outlook for the future that is sustainable for the next 50, 100 years. Yeah.
You see, since the pandemic, I've spoken to countless people, and I would distill it down to just three main areas that we really need to think about right now. The first is sustainable projects. The second is education. And the third is healthcare.
Yeah.
And if we can solve all three very soon in a very meaningful way, we're going to be able to solve a lot of other things, because this pandemic is not going to be the last pandemic. In fact, after watching all these zombie movies and apocalyptic movies, that's not all there. I think the one that will kill us all as a human race will be the virus, or any sort of pathogen. And I think now is the best time to launch a business in any of these three areas. I think one would suit well in making sure that the problems that are being solved in these areas can be attained here. And of course, EV is part of that general sustainability argument. But the thing about EVs is that it's not just about the vehicle per se. We're talking about an industry at large. We're talking about national automotive policy. We're talking about infrastructure, charging stations on the road. We're talking about users, both individuals like you, Dato, and myself, and of corporations. Just before we started the podcast, we were speaking to your colleague about whether or not corporates would take up the adoption for having EV trucks, for instance, to supply their goods and services, to move around and to basically change their whole fleet. These are macro ideas, right? And I think we should start off with what you guys can do first. We start off with the smallest block right now. What is going on with the MyKar project? Where is it at? And are you comfortable at this stage? Do you want to do more? Let's talk about the MyKar itself.
Well, the MyKar project started because I felt that Malaysia has this ambition or aim or wish to become a national a world player in automotive industry. This is why 40 years ago we started a thing called Proton, the first Malaysian car. And then Pro2 came about. But after 40 years, I'm a little bit disappointed that we really do not have a Malaysian car, a true Malaysian car. There are still imported technologies with IP control overseas, and we're actually doing some re-engineering, mainly on looks, but in the real thing about the car, what it contains in the car, it is still a foreign car made in Malaysia. And I felt that when Tun Mahathir thought about the third Malaysian car, he was thinking about, let's have an indigenous car, And
I mean, that was the original idea, pun.
Yes. But if you take the current internal combustion engine technology, it's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
And it's gone, it's cycle, and it's probably the best it has been ever. However, it is still a fuel consumption car. It is still emitting, and it is still using petrol, which is actually a resource that is going to be scarce or going to be very competitive. So therefore, where we saw the electric car is, and I had this idea, the electric car was that when I walked into a Tesla showroom one day in London, thinking that I was going to buy a car, then they showed me an X with the gull wing, and I looked at it. Wow, nice car. Then they showed the carcass of it, the carcass of it. Beside it, there was a exhibition of what the car looks without the body.
Okay.
Just I saw four wheels, chassis, and two motors, one in front, right? And that's it. I said, that's it. The battery is on the floor pan, and the rest is electronics. I said, hey, this is doable.
Yeah.
This is doable because nothing in here that we know nothing about. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, motors. We should know about motors.
What I hold in my hand is much more complex.
Yes.
Than
and batteries. You have the battery in your hand too. And what else? Electronics, software. We are one of the leaders in software. I mean, SES has been in software for the last 40 years. And software is something that we can do. It's a doable thing. So I said, hey, this is a doable project in Malaysia. So when I came back and I started talking about it, and when I heard the idea of the third Malaysian car, I said, well, let's make a fully electric car. But then I found that they were thinking of a hybrid. I said, wow, hybrid? No. If you want to make a Malaysian car, it has to be a fully electric car. So where do we start? I said, let's start from the beginning, a clean sheet of. What do we know about cars? We know suspension, we know everything about that, and engine. So we decided sourcing the parts and putting together the parts. And in 9 months, we have a working car. That's from nothing. with all the software, everything like that, of course we can keep on refining it further. So I said, it's a doable car. So we built the MyKar based on that concept, and we exhibited it, and it rose quite a lot of interest from people looking at it.
The biggest problem that we need to solve is the battery. That's always been the issue.
You see, I've been tracking the battery technology for the last 15 years. In fact, I was not early I lost money on the lithium-ion battery.
If you learn something, you never lose money. It's always an investment.
Yeah. So I was like 15 years ago, put 2 million ringgit aside to develop lithium-ion battery, which is what is in your phone now.
Okay.
But we didn't get there because we didn't get the manufacturing in order.
Okay.
Sony pick it up later and do it much later. So I know that at that time, that battery technology, this battery technology is going to shape the world. Some battery technology with high energy density, that's cheap to produce. And the cellular phone and the PC market actually made that happen. I mean, Tesla uses cellular phone batteries, or PC batteries made for laptops. That's how, if you open up satellite, there's a lot of laptop batteries in there. So battery technology has been going in basically the economic of scale has made it go very, very low. When I bought the battery for the MyRii about 2 years ago, it was like $200.
Okay.
Now it's become less than $100 for the same battery. It has dropped by more than 100%. And it's going to go down further because as when EV demand start going on, and it will push this thing further. So we believe that battery technology will not be the real problem. Well,
then what would be the real problem?
The real problem is getting people to change their mindset about what a car should be. Okay. Today, when you talk about an EV, you say, I have to compare it with the petrol car. The petrol car can go 500 kilometers. So unless I have a car that can do 500 kilometers, I don't want it. It's not suitable for me. But think again. In a normal drive, on an average person, on a normal drive, about 80% of the drivers would not do more than 60 kilometers a day. Yeah, but I need a car that I don't have to go to the petrol station.
But range anxiety is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Which brings me to the next question, which is infrastructure. How do you build recharge stations en masse? Because in Tesla's case, they kind of solved that.
They build
supercharging stations. And of course, if you don't hit a supercharging station, there's always a plug that you can, it will take time, but you can always charge. So that addresses that range anxiety. It's always that. I mean, you're right. 60 kilometers, 70 kilometers, whatever the research shows. I am that guy, right? Because I'm not going to be driving, 300 kilometers a day. But for me, I don't have that range anxiety. But for the mass, I'm sure there is a real issue, right?
There's some rethinking and re-education to take place. The thing is, if an average person most of the time only needs 60 kilometers, if I give them a 100-kilometer car, it'll be far cheaper than it would be a 500-kilometer car just because of the battery sizing.
Okay.
And this can be done with the EV. You can take an option of 100 kilometers, 500 kilometers, whatever you want to do, just by loading a different bigger batteries in that. The others remain the same. Battery is still the most important, most expensive part in the car. Yeah? However, think about it. The reason why you have range anxiety is because when you have to go to a petrol station to fill up your tank. But in a 100-kilometer range car, it is doable to charge at home. When you go home at night, you plug your car in, tomorrow morning it's fully charged. And you don't have to go to a station for that kind of car. Now, again, it's a chicken and egg as far as charging capability station is concerned. I mean, now we're a bit lethargic in trying to get charging infrastructure up there. But to me, it's a market demand. If today we suddenly people start buying cars because, number one, because the electric car is better and cheaper, if you can achieve that, then the Petronas and all the Shell will start, I'll put the charging station.
Yes.
And TNB will be stupid not to follow through because they are the one who's supplying the juice.
Yes.
Whoever build it. So TNB will come in a big way, say, yes, I will build a substation or I will do that. And there are also solar power possibilities to put in on the roofs of all the petrol stations to make it enough for you to support an infrastructure.
Yeah.
That infrastructure is a no-brainer because it is not difficult to have infrastructure. It's not like having to, pull up new industrial complex. It's electricity. It's everywhere. It's upscaling the capacity of the electricity network to support this, which they are able to do.
If it's so obvious, I wouldn't say easy, but if it's so obvious to solve this particular solution, what has been the biggest stumbling block? It's been 2021. We're approaching the mid-year of 2021, and yet the infrastructure is still not there. In your view, what's stopping us?
Well, Malaysians have always not been risk takers. Okay, we are quite complacent with everything we have, but the situation is that. So my approach is that if you are not going to be a risk taker, there are a group of people in Malaysia who form EV clubs and all that. They basically pushing these boundaries further and further, just because they are early adopters. But for the rest of us, is waiting to see. Come on now, if I want to buy a car, where am I going to charge it? I say charge it at home. Charge it at home, because most cars, unless you buy a very, very big expensive car, it is possible to charge your normal 100 kilometer car, because it doesn't take that much juice to charge it at home. And what the cost? The cost of charging a car at home is probably much cheaper than the cost you put petrol in the tank. It's actually about 30% or 40% of the cost. So there again, you save money. So, but what is the things about the electric car is that it was an eye opener for me when I'm lucky. I've got 2 electric cars.
Okay.
But when I first took my first Tesla, I asked the salesman, I said, where shall I come for my first service? He said, what service?
Yeah.
Where got service?
Yeah,
I was
shocked.
I was shocked. We don't have a service record, because basically the car is there, and we monitor it online. If there's a problem, we'll tell you or you tell us, and we know the problem, and we'll tell you what to do, and we tell you where to go. But as far as regular service, like every 1,000 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers for oil change, 10,000 kilometers for gearbox change, and then overhaul, doesn't exist in electric car. Wow, think about it. That is actually something that we should say. I own an electric car and there is no service. Yeah. Oh, batteries. The current batteries last 6 to 8, 10 years, depending on how you drive. 10 years is a long time to worry about the next battery.
Yeah, of course.
So the total running cost of the car will be much cheaper than your current internal combustion mode.
Do you believe that a new entry point would not just be on the retail but also on the commercial side? When I talk about commercial, I'm talking about IKEA, who have dozens of trucks. I don't know, whatever, all the logistic companies out there, they have a lot of initiatives to reduce costs or incentives to reduce costs. Do you believe that might be a better way in?
Well, definitely that is a segment that we are interested in to look at. However, the still mass market is something that we can bank on in order to be successful, because you see, trucks doesn't form more than 5% of the total. If you say you hit the truck market, you're still nowhere into the volume. But to me, the target for MyKar and my personal dream, or even it's not a dream, I think it's a reality, is that if we can build a car that is cheaper to buy and cheaper to run, it's a no-brainer to accept it. It's actually better to drive. If you have driven it, I keep on telling my friends, if you have driven an electric car, you will never go back to internal combustion engine. You'll never. The reason is the response of the car is completely different. Because the torque.
I've driven a Model S.
Oh yeah, you can.
I don't have money to buy one.
Yeah, but you're still driving, right?
Of course.
Because it's completely different. I came here with Tesla Model 3
Okay.
PE,
All right.
I use one leg only.
Yeah.
Because I press, it goes forward. When I release, it brekes.
Yeah.
So I asked the salesman.
The go-kart. Yeah.
It brake by engine braking, and while braking, it's just charging the battery.
Yeah.
You are reharvesting the energy back.
The dynamo.
It's incredible, and it's a system where you drive a car at the corner, you don't brake, you just let it go, and it will slow down enough to be able to press the accelerator again. It's a very smooth way.
We haven't touched about robotic driving as well.
That's another element.
That's another element.
It's so easy to put a robotic driver in a car like this, and later on it'll just be a chipset.
Yeah, of course.
So it's a no-brainer.
And if you build it right, you can even do it remotely in terms of upgrading.
Yes. I mean, nowadays Tesla, they upgrade you on online.
Yeah.
And you don't even know who they. But this is just like your phone or your PC.
We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing about the strategy of taxing electric vehicles. That would be an interesting conversation to be had.
This is a MARii podcast.
Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me Dato' Khalilur Rahman Ibrahim, the Executive Chairman and Founder of EV Innovations. We're talking about the MyKar project that they've just announced at Sepang. And we want to learn more about how it fits into the current ecosystem of the country. Everybody pays, if you have a car, everybody pays road tax. How do you think road tax is going to be structured for EVs?
If you look at what other countries have done, like in UK and in Scandinavia, in Europe, there is always incentive to go green. In fact, the whole country sometimes win election on green.
Absolutely. Yeah. Green parties are in the mood right now, I suppose.
So how more green can you be than actually having electric car and provide incentive for it? So part of the green initiative is that if you want to encourage less pollution in the country, and clean the air and make your water better and all that, you should encourage the adoption of electric vehicles. Yeah? And not only the solar can be used to charge it, but actually the amount of energy you use in electric vehicle, charging in electric way rather than using fuel, it is much more efficient and much less pollution. So I think the time has come for Malaysians to realize that this is the way forward for the government and people to go forward. I mean, I don't have to say very much. I mean, last year, about this time, we had a lockdown.
Yep.
Remember? And the lockdown happened between March and until Pagaya, kan? And the amazing thing, in that 6 weeks or 8 weeks of lockdown, the KL sky blew up.
Yeah.
Not blew up.
Yeah.
Went blue.
Yeah.
And I saw birds that I never seen before.
Yeah, I still have those birds in my area. I'm not even kidding you. I've been there 10 years.
Only two.
I've seen storks. I've seen kingfishers.
They came back.
They came back. Monkeys too. But
I mean, it's a no-brainer. What proof do you need? You have got living proof that you lived through it. That if you stop this pollution, or you reduce it, the ecology will come and then the green thing will come and clean.
But how does JPJ tax the car owner? I mean, look, as a country, this country is facing shortages of taxation. World Bank is arguing that we are on the precipice of becoming a high growth income nation, but only if we address certain areas. One of them is, of course, tax collection. People like you, Dato', and me, we are one of those rare people that pay taxes, income tax, 15% of the workforce. So they're looking for tax in other areas. Road tax is the clearest contributor.
However you look at it, after the pandemic, there's going to be a rethinking of what generates the economy. I mean, there are new ways of making money and all things. Yes, the government need to tax petrol and things like that. But at the end of the day, the fuel is taxed when you sell it to TNB also. And with that, TNB generates electricity.
Yes.
So more fuel is going to be used. There will be more tax paid by them.
Yeah.
So that is one source of tax. Your energy is being taxed already. Now, currently, road tax is a bit funny because it is based on the cc of the car.
Yeah.
It's based on the size of the car. Actually, per kilometer, if you use more, you pay more tax. Why can't we do that? We can have an automatic toll system that tax you as you go along.
Yeah, a small little kanchil can be driving 1 million miles a year and still be paying that little ringgit.
So if your job requires you to travel 1,000 kilometers, I'm sure that you are able to pay that tax because it pays to go there.
Yeah,
but if
you would impute it. You're already paying the fuel.
I mean, I have a car and I don't use it at all. I'm still paying road tax. What road tax? I don't use it.
Yeah,
So basically, should be based on usage. Is that difficult to implement? Maybe 100 years ago, maybe. Now it's easy. You can track every car and decide at the end of the month, how much he used the road, and which route you use, which is secondary route, primary route, and just say you pay this tax.
In pursuit of talking about rethinking how the economy works, what about insurance? How do you think insurance fit in the EV evolution?
I don't think insurance changed at all. Insurance is about accident protection, and it is just the value of the car plus what you pay based on that.
Right. The big question right now is, normally I keep the big question, I start off with the big questions, but somehow or other this went on very interesting. But the big question is on the EV developmental programs and how this will create jobs, how this will create new industrial complex, maybe how this will create or streamline the existing jobs that we have now. You're an engineer, you would be taught in the art of the internal combustion engine when you were growing up. And then now you're like, what ICE? Now it's EV, right? So that's a repurpose and reskilling and retooling of your own skill sets. Where would we be in the near term? I don't like a 10-year blueprint. That's not 10 years ago was very different from 10 years from what it is today. Right now, in the near future, in the next 6 months, for instance, where do you think the EV development programs will look like?
Well, people are always afraid that when a new technology comes, it's a completely disrupt the old technology. I don't look at it that way. There is always a phase in and phase out of old technology. The first reality you have to accept as a businessman is that if you are banking on petrol and petrol engines and all that, is there a future in that? Or if you ask people, they say, oh, that'll be 20 years. Rubbish.
But ExxonMobil, Petronas, whatever, all have you, because you're going up against the oil and gas
but they are
industry.
Saying that's their face value. At the end, on the back, they are getting panic. They say, I have to reschedule. And in Singapore, the Shell people are actually getting involved in putting in a charging station. They have decided to jump in the bandwagon in Singapore, in Indonesia. Of course, in other countries, they're doing the same. I mean, remember solar energy? How the petrol people was so afraid of it, they actually buy the patents and kept it in the shelf.
Yeah.
They cannot escape that now. Solar energy, in Dubai, they have put a solar station on the desert that is cheaper to put infrastructure and of course the fuel cost is going to be like zero. Even initial infrastructure is cheaper than the similar size in the fuel power station. So solar power is the way to go in terms of energy, and then to me, we're talking about 3%, 5%. It's going to be far bigger than that in my perspective. With solar power and actually the Petronas and the Shell and all that have to rethink what their future is. I mean, what is the price of petrol now? Fuel oil. Imagine, I used to remember it was $100 per barrel.
I went down to 20, 30 even nowadays. 60 I think now.
Yeah. At one time, they pay you to keep the oil.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you think those corporate giants, the economists there are not panicking? They are panicking. Of course, they're not saying they're panicking because then the investors will run away. But the realities of it, they are looking at alternative too. And this alternative is real. If they bank into this kind, EV as being the source of new income for them, they're going to rechannel their resources there. They have lots of money channeling there. And then, to me, it is not impossible to change it. I have looked at the car. The car is the same car except it doesn't have an engine, doesn't have a gearbox, doesn't have a drive shaft, doesn't have differential, doesn't have exhaust, doesn't have fuel tank. If I remove all those, in a typical B segment car, I remove 320 kilos. I can replace that with an electric motor and battery, and I can save 100 kilo in weight in that car. Not heavier, because hybrids are heavier, but this is a fully electric car with our technology of having hub motors. It is 100. So you have now inherently a car which is 100 kilos lighter, and it can be cheaper. If you remove all those things, they can be cheaper. Now, if you start with this, how can it not be successful? Because as far as the car is concerned, it's the same car, it's got a different engine. But the driving and the...
No engine, so to speak, but just electric and motor battery.
So, and I developed, I coined up this term called dilutive manufacturing. I mean, if EV innovation is going to start in a factory, it's a stupid idea because basically there are so many factories making cars already.
Yeah.
We have to go to these factories making cars and sell the idea to them. And with government support and incentive, is that look, we have to start moving into EV. How are we going to do it? Take your simplest car now, remove the engine, put my technology inside, and you can come up with a car that's better and cheaper. Who wouldn't want? If I can prove it. And I have proven it. I've taken a proton
what's the take up like for EV innovations sendirian berhad? The idea seems to be sound.
Currently, we are in the process of really engaging industrial players, and the big players are already talking to us. There are a lot of people. After our exposure, launching the other day, there are a lot of people coming and says, "I want to bank in. I want to jump in this."
Do you have a price tag on your MyKar?
I have set the limit. My first MyKar on the road is 50,000 ringgit, and it's doable. That's probably cheaper than a Saga.
Yeah.
Lighter than Saga, more economical to run, and no servicing.
What's the timeline like? I'm pretty sure people are going to be queuing like beelines out there.
If I can get these companies, the giants, the Produas and the Proton and the DRB Highcom and then NASA to get interested in this, I can have the first car on the road within a year. It's no time. You can take me, give me a car now. I can take it to my workshop. I'll give you a brand new car with what I said just now in less than 4 weeks as a prototype. Then you can test it. No brainer. It will have air conditioning. It will have power windows. It will have airbags. Homologation is not going to be a problem because it has been homologated before.
Yes.
So that is the approach. I think that is probably the most sane approach to this, rather than starting a brand new factory.
So the homologation process of the project is to make it ready for manufacturing. That was the MOA that was signed between MARii and you guys.
Yes.
When you signed the agreement, was there a clear timeline on making it, I guess, tangible?
We work with MARii because MARii is the government side of things that to make things better. It's easier to get rules and regulation. For instance, we are talking to MARii now about homologation. But if homologation, when I look at the list of homologation, if I was to go through the whole process of a brand new car, it may take 4 years. Because everything But
it's there for a reason, right? I mean, there's no shortcut.
For road safety and all that. But if you take a car that's already inherently safe, okay? Like a car that's
basically a car that has already checkmarked boxes already.
Then you remove the engine, the brake remains there. You remove the exhaust, you remove the fuel tank, you remove all the fuel system, you remove the engine and the gearbox and everything like that. The steering remains there, everything like that. The aircon remains. Then you put in a battery.
Which falls back to your philosophy of deletion
manufacturing.
Sorry, this is my first time hearing this.
It is actually a word I called up. Because if you do 3D printing, it's called additive manufacturing.
I was on TikTok and then there's a guy that had 4 bricks of Lego and put a bridge there and then 3 bricks of Lego. And the guy says, how do you make this balance? 99.9% of the time, people add 1 more brick so that it becomes 4 and 4, it becomes balanced. He said, that's everything that in life, humans are like that.
Yeah.
You got to build. Yeah. You got to build in order to make it work instead of, because there's another solution, which is fine. The net effects is still the same. Yeah. You can remove one of the bricks and even better, you don't need to find that one extra brick.
Yeah. So my challenge to the current manufacturers, they're basically making cars for Malaysia to start with. I said, take your existing model, okay? And remove what I say you remove. You know the cost of what you remove.
Yeah.
And add one and do the mathematics and see what happens. The car is roadworthy already because all you have changed is not the suspension is still there. You just also change the engine. The weight that you remove from the fuel tank, you replace with the battery. You can actually, with batteries, you can even make a more balanced car because you can put the batteries anywhere to balance the car. So the car becomes 50-50, very well, better handling car and front heavy or back heavy. And suspension, you can be tuned. And it's a no-brainer. To me, I have proven it and I will take the challenge of anyone. Say, give me a car. I will update it for you. And I can show you that it is lighter and cheaper, not heavier. If it's lighter and cheaper, what's to prevent someone from wanting to buy the car? Now comes in the government initiative. If government says, okay, for the first 3 years, no road tax, people will rush.
I mean, having a price tag of 50,000 would help lah.
Yes, yeah, of course, it must be there. But this is incentive to turn. Why do government need to turn in? Because government need to accept the new reality of going that way. I mean, Sweden, Norway have accepted it. They don't allow anymore. Norway has don't allow any more new cars. I see. And England,
even the new so-called capital of Indonesia in Borneo is going to be electrified.
Correct. Of course, you don't talk about China.
China's there already.
They're there already. And so we Malaysians have to
I
look
went to Yiwu, Dato, many years ago. 7 years ago, I think. They are there already.
Yes.
7 years ago.
Correct.
Or 6 years ago,
Correct.
whenever I went there. Yiwu, I mean, this is... I mean, it's not Guangzhou, it's not Shanghai, it's not whatever, it's not Beijing, it's Yiwu.
But not only cars, electrical motorcycle,
but
bicycle, bus, everything.
Electrified bus. I was on an electrified bus 7 years ago and I was shocked,
Yeah.
Why I was shocked is not the fact that they are there already. The fact that I didn't know about it until I went there.
Correct.
That was a fun bit for me.
Yeah. But today, the Chinese company is producing supercars. Of course, supercar by electrical standard is far better than the supercar because you cannot beat the speed of an electrical motor with your torque.
Yeah, okay.
2 seconds and 0 to 100 is nothing.
Yeah, but I don't want a car that I just need to get from my house to my office, whatever, right? And even then, moving forward with the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic, people are really rethinking about how to be productive at home or try to reduce their
travel
mobility.
Less. Yes. And if you travel less, what is better than having an electric car that you charge at home and when ready to travel when you want?
Yeah.
So I think of it in many facets, but the reality is that the movers and shakers of this world, like the power industry, the petroleum industry, need to rethink, and I think they're starting to rethink. Also, they're not declaring it about what is their way forward in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
The challenge that I see for your company is this. One is to manage the kind of manufacturing processes that I think you got it there already. But the second is a little bit harder, which is trying to talk to all these stakeholders, from governments, from industry players, to consumers. I think the outreach is there. Tesla did both and did both well. And that's why they're around. In fact, one could argue that two automotive companies in the US that are profitable, Ford and Tesla, other people are just losing money.
Yes.
So where are you at in terms of these engaging these stakeholders? Both politics lah, everything lah, oil and gas, you name it. Petrol station.
The Tesla is my template. What they did, what they did was they take a Lotus sports car and remove the engine and put the electric motor and showed it that it can be done. So the first Tesla is actually a sports car.
I did not know
from
this.
Lotus. Yes, that's what they did. That's what more than 10 years ago. Before the S came out, their first car is the sports car, and it's actually a Lotus. And then they sold the idea to Mercedes, which is another big player, and Mercedes became an investor. I want to do similar routes. He said, I'm going to start. Okay, let's
reinventing the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah. So that is a successful route because they didn't start with a big factory. They started with a successful idea, and that's the idea they move forward. And I remember reading about Elon Musk and all that. He invited the investors from Mercedes to come, and they came and they were sort of German, very proper.
Yeah.
So, what are you trying to show me? Oh, this small car. They said, okay, don't talk about it, just drive it. After they drove it, they came back and they signed a check. The performance of the car. They took the car. My God, they kata, our cars couldn't do this. So, again, I would challenge anyone to drive an electric car. You've done so. And you realize that this is the way to go. But
for me, cost prohibitive, not range anxiety,
because it's Tesla.
Not all that.
I have always got this idea. If you want to compete, you compete in your area of competency or your area of excellence. If I want to challenge boxing with Mike Tyson,
you won't
I would not win.
Yeah.
But I will say, Mike Tyson, I will challenge you to sepak takraw. Okay? Maybe he can kick,
Yeah.
with that big bicep. And I might win. So, again, if you have to challenge the industry, don't challenge the industry in this big thing. Look at where the niche is. And the niche is to come in an area where it is not being serviced. Tesla do not service us these cheap cars. They go for the high end. They're fighting with the high end cars. But
I mean, that is their selection.
Their selection. They will fight. The Model 3 is going there. It's still there. It's still the M3, BMW. I'm saying let's get the Saga, the Aria. That is the one that in Southeast Asia is probably the most hot selling cars. Get this segment and get them to participate in it. If they don't want to participate in it, it is their loss. Because basically the future is there. We do not see, because everyone, in England, they were in the car industry for a long time. Yeah? They decided to say, okay, we're going to adopt to go fully electric by 2040. They just move it 10 years forward. And now they're saying, in 2021 onward, we already encourage the purchase of electric car, and including hybrids. They put hybrid in the purchase of internal combustion engine, including hybrid. So they're saying fully electric is what they support. Their tax, they are already giving incentive to, if you buy a Tesla below £50,000, you actually get a rebate of 5,000 or something like that. That's what they're doing in order to be in this market. If we do not do that, we will become the bystander. But please understand, this is your surrounding is not static. Look what's happening in Vietnam. How fast they can have their growth.
We lost
there. That's okay.
It's not okay.
It's okay to think that Vietnam, we lost. Indonesia,
we lost. We're losing.
Tesla have to go there.
Yeah.
Singapore, Tesla is opening up there.
We lost that one a long time ago. It's very hard.
So if we don't wake up, I mean, I'm not talking just politicians. If the people don't wake up, if the industrialists don't wake up.
The focus shouldn't be at the politicians. The politicians should listen to the people.
Correct.
If the people don't realize that.
If we provide the way forward and say, hey, the politicians basically, they have to provide.
And the politicians are responsive. The people want that, then they will be responsive.
That's what I said. So our selling is to change the mindset of people, the consumers. And what better way than to make it cheaper?
Fantastic. I think we have to end soon. And this would be a good place to end. My last question to you is this. If you had to take your manufacturing processes outside of Malaysia because of business survivability, would you do it?
No. I believe in Malaysia. I think we can do it. Actually, Malaysians as a nation, we are in all our region, we have to look at our advantages rather than disadvantages. The fact that we are actually very innovative in ourselves. Yeah. The fact that we are our level of education is second to none compared to Southeast Asia, to ASEAN countries. And in fact, that's why we managed to grow up, because to grow industrially in the days in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Because people look around, they say, hey, go to Malaysia. It's compulsory education up to Form 5. You cannot find in Thailand. You cannot find in Indonesia. So if you take a factory worker, you open the drawing, they can read. Our Malaysians can read already. We had that advantage. We lost it because we were sleeping. But we still have the advantage. We still have education that is free until Form 5. So and none of our people in the street are not educated. Even the orang asli and the poor people, they can. So I take that as an advantage. And the fact that we have led before in the white goods area, we can lead again.
Fantastic. That was our conversation with Dato' Khalilur Rahman Ibrahim, the Executive Chairman and Founder of EV Innovations. If you've missed any part of this podcast interview, just download the podcast, search for MARii, that's MARII, and subscribe to our podcast as well. Until then, thanks very much for listening in. My name is Ibrahim. Until next time.
This is a MARii podcast.